Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. When it comes to boxing and it comes to guys becoming undisputed is not easy, okay? It's one thing to get there and get a title, to unify, to become undisputed. But to hold on to that distinction is extremely difficult. But when guys get there, you would figure that these organizations would find a way to ensure that they hold on to that distinction as long as they possibly can while defending the undisputed title or their undisputed position. Now, when you go and you look across the different organizations and you look at who their top 10, okay, or their top 15, or hell, just look at their top 5. A lot of times there are inconsistencies across the organizations. And I've done videos, other people have brought this up, but I try to harp on it when I do touch base on it, that it doesn't make sense. How can you have in the WBC your number 1, 2, 3, and 4, your number 1 through 5, not in the same order as the other organizations, or your number 1 through 5, maybe 2 of those guys are in their 1 through 5, and then they have different names. That just doesn't make sense. And as a result, it's total chaos when you see matchmaking happening or guys getting into these positions as a mandatory challenger or getting to a title eliminator bout. It's inconsistencies across the board. And it's very frustrating for me as a fight fan because it's like, well, hell, when are we going to see the fights we want? Now, there was a meeting that the different sanctioning bodies sat down and they decided to try to figure out a way to, when they get somebody into a position as an undisputed champion, to where they want all of these different mandatories, and because what I'm saying is the WBC would have a mandatory, the IBF, the WBA, the WBO. So you have a guy who has 4 belts and 4 different mandatories. And it's impossible for him to defend against 4 people at the same damn time. And even if they don't want him to do that, the time frames that they impose on these guys to go out there and defend the title is unrealistic. So they finally decided, okay, when we have an undisputed champion and we have the 4 different organizations, we're going to sit down and we're going to collectively talk about which mandatory gets the first shot. So the WBA, WBC, IBF, or WBO, whichever one. So if they go with the WBO, their mandatory gets a shot. If he loses, he goes back to the back of the line. The WBC, their guy will get a shot. Go to the back of the line if he loses. WBA, same thing, and the IBF. So if the undisputed champion can clip those 4 guys, those 4 mandatories from each organization, then they'll start off again, and whoever went first after the 4th organization goes, they're back up. Now, to me, that's fair. But what's happening now, right? And I'm going to read a little bit to you, right? The WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO agreed to establish a schedule of mandatory defenses, which is what I just explained to you, to avoid a world champion being simultaneously hit with more than one mandatory obligation. It's impossible to do it, which in turn would force the belt holder to vacate one or more titles. That's exactly what happens. And that's the BS in boxing that a lot of us don't like. Earlier this week, the WBA announced that the organization was stripping Josh Taylor of his junior welterweight title for his failure to move forward with a mandatory obligation against Alberto Puello. Sulaiman explained that the WBA violated the sanctioning body agreement because the WBC's mandatory challenger, Jose Zepeda, was next in line to fight Taylor. So now you see, this is the problem. The WBA, they want their guy to go fight. The WBC wants their guy to go fight. Now, there was a meeting they had to resolve all that BS. So now they knew the WBC was supposed to go first. But then the WBA is looking at the money they're not getting. And it all comes down to the root of evil, man, is just money. So now the WBC is pissed off because Josh Taylor has been stripped. And now we no longer have an undisputed champion. And the WBA is going to go out there and take that title and have 2 people fight for it. And that's unfair to Josh Taylor. Now, when I read more, you're going to see just how screwed up this situation gets. Additionally, he says the WBA also violated the agreement when they ordered Juan Francisco Estrada to fight Joshua Franco, when the WBC had already ordered a trilogy fight between Estrada and Roman Gonzalez. The WBC will remain strong in its campaign to try to achieve unification fights so that fans can enjoy the ones they deserve to see, battles between champions that grab their attention. Unfortunately, words have no value when an organization, or rather its leader, has no honor, Sulaiman said. At the beginning of this year, the 4 presidents of boxing's governing bodies met in Puerto Rico. Francisco Valcarcel hosted us in San Juan. Darryl Peoples, Gilberto Jesus Mendoza, and Gary Shaw represented the WBA, and I represented the WBC. This is what's his name talking, Sulaiman. He said, we basically met with the best intentions on finding ways to improve conditions, and like I was talking about, implement measures for the administration of the sport with respect and reciprocating amongst each organization, meaning taking turns for their guys who are in mandatory position to get a shot at a title, or the guy in the undisputed position. The priority was how to keep champions unified and make sure mandatory challengers don't break the undisputed status and lose belts on a desk. We also agreed to start a process so that the organizations seek to have common mandatory challengers. Common mandatory challengers. That is what makes sense. So now when you go back looking at these rankings, and like I was saying, is all this contrast amongst the names. The goal here in that meeting was to have common mandatory, which makes it so much easier and so much sense. And that would prevent Unified World Champions from having to do mandatory fights, one after another after another. So then he goes on and he says this right here. This is what tripped me out, right? Okay. This is the part that's really messed up. He's like, they agreed that Josh Taylor, would do the WBO mandatory against Jack Catterall. And the winner would do the WBC mandatory match with Jose Chon Zepeda. And the winner would continue with the IBF. So it's the WBO mandatory, WBC mandatory, then IBF mandatory. That was supposed to be the order of operation. They all accepted that process, and at no time was anything to the contrary commented. Now this is where it gets really screwed up. Taylor complied with the mandatory WBO fight, and his following match is ours, the WBC mandatory, because Taylor got the WBO out the way. Now he's supposed to be fighting the mandatory for the WBC. It turns out that the WBA breached the honor agreement that was held. See, that's horrible. But check this out. And ordered Taylor against another fighter, which resulted in a purse bid in which only one promoter participated. So that means there's no competition in the purse bid. So if I throw out $10, I don't have any competition. That's what it is. The fighters are going to fight for $10. That's horrible. But check it out. The purse bid in which only one promoter participated with the ridiculous amount of $200,000. So $200,000 to be split across 2 fighters. Taylor, who already earns millions of dollars, would be forced to fight for about $120,000 this past Saturday. Would be forced to fight for $120,000. This past Saturday, Josh Taylor abandoned the title of that organization. Of course, who the hell's going to go fight for $120,000 when you're making millions? And thus, the undisputed championship of the super lightweight division ended. A real shame for Taylor, for the fans, and boxing in general. Now, you probably said, all right, that's a one-off. It's wrong. It's horrible. Check it out. The WBA did the same at super flyweight. They knew that the third fight between Juan Francisco Gallo Estrada, it's a long-ass name, boy, and Roman Chocolito Gonzalez had been ordered by the WBC, and in the process of finalizing the negotiations, once again, the WBA ordered Estrada to fight another man with a purse bid of $120,000. So we will see what Estrada will decide to do. So, in other words, Gallo and Chocolito would have to get in the ring for little to no money at a world champion level. Now, that is madness. But it goes to show you that when it comes to these organizations, man, a lot of them really don't care. But they should. They really don't. They're all about themselves. But key point from this is, I think Sulaiman and them, some of those belts they make, crazy. But they seem to have good intentions to bring all the different organizations, sanctioning bodies together and say, hey, we need to have common mandatory challengers so we can keep these unified champions as unified, keep our undisputed champions as undisputed, or at least give them an give every organization a shot to get the mandatory in, opposed to having somebody hit simultaneously with, we have 4 different organizations with 4 mandatories. Now, guys like Josh Taylor, I wouldn't accept $120,000 when I'm making, $1.5 to $4 million a fight. That's why. So now the WBA, like, oh, we know he's not going to take the fight. Now we get our belt back. And we can throw it out there, have 2 guys fight for it, and, we make all the money. Because we give, if they give you $100,000, $120,000, they're probably making a few million on the fight. So they pocket all that and pay you dirt money. And out of that little $120,000, you got to go pay your trainer, your manager, your promoter, everything else. So that's horrible. But I want to put that on you all's radars, man, because, a lot of times people just put the hot stuff out there, the big names. This is, to me, it's probably the most important thing for us to discuss is what's going on in boxing, man. And these guys work their tails off to get in positions just to fight for a title. Then you go on a unified title. And then you somehow go on and become undisputed. Let me tell you something. It's not easy to win a title and then hold on to that title to keep winning. See, you can say, don't take this wrong when I say anybody can win a title, right? I feel almost anybody, if they work hard enough, they can get into a position and they can somehow win a title. Okay? Charles Martin won the title. He didn't go in there and blow anybody up. Guy got injured. So what I'm saying is, anything can happen, but it takes a lot of work. Okay, so I'm not downplaying it. But to hold on to that title and defend it over and over and over, to get to a position to win undisputed, that's huge. You had to keep winning. And when these guys who win titles or unify, become undisputed, when they start getting hit with simultaneous mandatories, and now it's impossible to defend the belt against 2 people at the same time, now you strip them. Because we don't have common mandatories and these sanctioning bodies aren't having conversations. That is a foul. But I'll leave it as that. I think you get the picture. Hopefully they'll sort this out, but I just think it's foul that these guys are fighting for, 1 belt, 2 belts, 3 belts, 4 belts, whatever it is, and these sanctioning bodies can come in and just say, and have no competition in the purse bid, and throw some BS number to them, and then if they don't take it, they get their belt back and they go on and make big money anyway, the sanctioning bodies. That's just a foul, man. But anyway, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the channel, enjoyed the video, and leave your comments below, because I think we should be talking about this a lot more than talking about what's going on with, Spence, what's going on with Thurman, what's going on with Crawford, Wilder statue, Tyson Fury, and all the BS if he chooses to wait a whole year to decide if he's going to retire or not or fight. Those things are entertaining. I get it. But, let me see how many people have an opinion on this crap, because that's foul. That being said, you guys keep cool, and as always, I'm in the breeze.